As a young football player, Damar Hamlin says he never thought about CPR or where the nearest defibrillator was located. But after the Buffalo Bills safety went into cardiac arrest and collapsed on the field in January, heart health awareness has become a top priority for him. And now he is teaming up with lawmakers to highlight a bipartisan bill that grants schools with funding to buy those devices and develop response plans for cardiac emergencies. Hamlin spoke at an event on Capitol Hill Wednesday to raise awareness on the Access to AEDs Act.
Today we are so humbled and inspired by what I feel is an opportunity that God has given me to help and protect young people based on what I experienced. So here are some facts that I feel that need to matter to all of us. Sudden cardiac arrest happens to more than 7,000 kids under the age of 18 every year in our country. 7,000 kids every year. For schools that have AEDs, the survival rate for the children from sudden cardiac arrest is 7 times higher. The Access to AEDs Act will help ensure that schools are just as prepared and trained to respond in a time of crisis as those on the sideline of an NFL game.
Joining me right now is one of the lawmakers who introduced the bill, Florida Congresswoman Cherfilus-McCormick. Congresswoman, so good to see you.
Nice to see you, Fredricka. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, wonderful. Well, I mean, what inspired you to bring this bill before Congress and get Damar Hamlin on board as well?
Well, as a mom watching the game, when I saw Damar collapse, my heart sunk. And I immediately thought about the times when my daughter was playing soccer and one of the kids got hit with the ball and you didn't know if they had a concussion, and the fear that you have as a parent watching. And then I learned very quickly that this situation actually happens to many of our kids who play sports, but they have a heartbreaking outcome that wasn't as great as Damar's. Like when we think about the Mangine family in Kentucky, their son passed out on the floor, had cardiac arrest while he was playing soccer. And there was the AED device that was 250 square feet away from him. However, no one knew how to use it. Or the Manning family in California, whose daughter was a cheerleader. And we also have the Macaroons in Florida, whose family member, also their son, died during playing soccer. So it became very apparent that we have to protect our kids and make sure that all of our children, especially our student athletes, are actually having the opportunity to have life-saving technology, especially since a lot of times we think of cardiac arrest and we don't think of our children. We especially don't think of our athletes.
Right.
So it's important to rethink what we see happening with cardiac arrest and make sure that all of our kids have a chance at surviving.
And it really is extraordinary just to hear Damar Hamlin, break it down. 7,000 kids a year. I mean, that is hard to believe. And as you said, especially when you are talking about, student athletes, you don't think that this becomes something so common. So this bill is co-sponsored by Florida Republican lawmaker Bill Posey. What does it mean to have this kind of bipartisan support to get this measure going?
Well, it really proves the point that, there are some people who are still willing to work bipartisanly and despite people and politics, and to make sure our kids are protected. And I think the support we've been getting from all the major league athletics, especially the NFL, NBA, and even the National Hockey League, it's really weaving the story that we're united on saving our kids. When we think about the legacy that's actually going to be left after we pass this bill, it'll save, even if it saves one life, we did our mission and we accomplished what we need to do.
So help us understand, the objective of the bill and what it will afford schools to do. It's not just having the devices, but there's training involved, so you don't have circumstances like the ones that you described, where people didn't know how to use it or even how to access something that they had on campus.
Well, what we found out is that there's only a handful of states that require schools to have AED. So we wanted to normalize the availability to all schools. In addition to that, as I mentioned, there were 2 students who actually died because there was a defibrillator there, but no one knew how to use it. And really, when we see these cardiac arrest situations happen with our kids, the response is usually one of fear and not knowing. And we want to normalize people knowing about heart health and also how to use defibrillators. And that's why this bill also provides grant funding for yearly training. things. So now it would be as easy as a fire drill. Once you hear that bell, you know what to do and you know how to get out. We want the same response for our parents, our students, and anyone who's working on these facilities, on the schools, to make sure that everyone has the same response. And that's really our goal, is to normalize heart health, normalize saving our children, and normalize everyone having access to life-saving treatments.
Okay, all in an effort to have a much better life-saving outcome. Congresswoman Sheila Cherfilus-McCormick, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.